What's up, guys, and welcome back to the doctor's office. I am Dr. K right now, here to give you proper diagnosis and prognosis and everything comics and comic book characters. Image Comics is doing a lot right now between Image, Dark Horse, Mad Cave. I mean, there are other comic book universes just kind of coming forward with some stories, but these three, Dark Horse, Image, Mad Cave, are quite literally fucking competing with whatever DC and Marvel have going on. Mainly because DC and Marvel stay in their same small area, and these three universes expand upon things. Most notably, the one I'm going to be talking about, which is Lost Fantasy. So this book was wildly entertaining, I'm not even gonna lie. They did say that it was a little bit of it was definitely based on Final Fantasy, and I could definitely see it. So I'm very interested in how the rest of the story is going to go and what else they decide to do. So we go into this girl is running through the woods, small girl. She's running through the woods. She's freaked out, of course, and she runs into this guy who's are you okay? Whose blood is that? But before he can actually assist her, she's basically panicking, saying we need to go. Before he can actually assist her, he gets sliced in half. Okay? Damn. So she runs, and there's this couple coming up the road in their car, talking, of course, and she runs out into the middle of the street and they hit her. So of course she ends up being put in the hospital. There is a phone call to a white-haired guy. Y'all know how much I love white-haired men. Who looks like he just fucking partied at a frat house. And he's why are you calling at this ungodly hour? And the person's just you know who I am, you know what I want, it happened again. Let's go. Chop chop. Give me a minute, because I'm drunk. Right? Hold on. So he leaves there and he goes to this place that seems to be guarded by different magical, supernatural creatures. And he uses magic to teleport himself to Montana. Now, it's at this moment that we get into the history of what's really going on here. So, in 1906, there was this gigantically huge fire, but it was written in the history books about this one particular town that was rocked by fire and earthquakes. What's not in the history books is that this was started by fire goblins, and they ended up being defeated by leaders of these 5 great nations known as the Great Hunters. And they brought with them magic and things like that. And so the people, regular human non-magic people, were ugh, gross, magic, how the fuck? So they hated him off rip. We know how that goes, right? So 1907, Theodore Roosevelt and several other world leaders went to Terra, which was the under the earth, basically. It's another magical fucking city, and they took a tour. However, when they left, they were all kind of divided on what to do or what to think about this place in particular. When the Treaty of Versailles had been signed, there was an addendum that had been put in it, or an amendment that had been put in it, giving Blackheart, and I'm gonna list the names of the Great Hunters because the names were, I can't focus. But I'm gonna list the name of the Great Hunters. Blackheart was essentially the leader of the Great Hunters, and money was allocated to these people so that the next generation of Great Hunters could be trained and educated, and then they would be guarding the barrier between humans and that magical world. So, Theodore Roosevelt and all the government knew about this super magical world, and they needed those borders to be guarded. That's where the Great Hunters were coming in. Meanwhile, while Blackheart is quite literally on his own property, minding his own business, he finds this little baby with white hair, and the baby is full of old magic, not even new magic, but old magic. And so he adopts the baby, raises him, trains him, and that is who we are looking at. And he becomes an FBI agent. So his name is Henry, and what's really interesting about Henry is that he has a dragon tattoo on the side of his neck. That's important. Focus. So he goes to the hospital and he wants to see the victim, and the nurse is just kind of like, are you family? And he's like, no, FBI. And one of the like security guards comes over, is like, is there a problem? No, mind your business. She's like, I'll take you to the girl, but she can't talk because she's in a coma. So he goes and he just kind of places his hand on her just to see what happened. She looks like she's with her sister, and there's like a party that's going on. She was told to go upstairs. There's just this huge party going on, and all of them ended up getting murdered by something. And so she ended up running after the guy who I think is like her sister's boyfriend told her to run. So that's how she ended up running through the forest and all of that other stuff. So the sheriff comes in and is like, can I help you? He was like, no, just saying a little prayer. Didn't know you city boys knew about prayer. Listen, shut the fuck up. I hate fucking country bumpkin people. Anyway, so he's like, I would like to see the crime scene, cool. So he calls for an officer and basically was like, I have an FBI agent that needs babysitting. None of that was necessary, but okay. So the agent comes and picks him up and like is trying to have like conversation with him in the car, but it sounds like a bunch of conspiracy theory bullshit. And he's just like, can we just not do this, like this thing that you're trying to do? Can we just not do that? He's like, you're really rude. No, I just don't want to sit here and listen to you talk about conspiracy theories while this girl is in the hospital. I mean, fuck. Right. So they get to the area and he's like, oh yeah, this is where it happened. This is where they hit her. Their car is being worked on. And he's like, did you take a look around the area? He's like, yeah, we did a quick look and we didn't find anything. He's like, all right, cool. I'm going to go look. Since you doing quick looks and shit. So the sheriff calls him and he's like, so how's it going? He's like, well, he's going into the woods. I'm going to follow him. But, he's like, yeah, keep your eyes on him. And then he makes a call to someone and he's just like, we have a problem. So of course you guys are obviously keeping this shit a secret, right? So, why wouldn't you be? It's always those small fucking towns. So he's out in the woods and he uses the tattoo and the dragon's name is Enzo and there's two of them. And so they're basically trying to put together what it is that happened to the girl and the fact that she was chased and all this other stuff. And while Enzo and Henry are talking, Enzo's just like, by the way, we have company. And these three like creepy creatures that show up, one of them is a rock, one of them looks like a dragonish type thing. And then there's the other one. So, he pulls out this gigantic sword and he starts fighting with them. And at the end of it, like after he fights the last one that's still standing, which is the rock creature, and he stabs it, he's like, these were sent as a distraction. So somebody's trying to do something. The distraction was to keep him from noticing a fucking sniper. And he gets shot in the head. And he's like, and that's when the whole world goes black and I die. And I'm like, damn. It was a good shot though. Not even gonna lie. That was a good ass shot. The artwork for this is super interesting. I'm still waiting to see, outside of the gigantic sword, how the main character does kind of look like he is from Final Fantasy. And like the creatures that come. I'm still kind of just wanting to see what else is going on. So it's kind of like a mix between like Final Fantasy and like, when Criminal Minds goes to those small ass towns where they don't really want the FBI there, or any of those shows like that. So I'm kind of interested to see where this goes, what's going on, what experiments you guys are doing where you have to keep the rest of the fucking town quiet. I feel like the killing of all of those people in that cabin was on purpose. And now that the girl escaped, but she's in a coma, so you're safe, like, what I'm saying? So it's really interesting. I do really like the start of this and I can't wait for more. But that is it for this episode of The Doctor's Office, and I will see you guys at your next checkup.